We do have an update from Katie Caldwell over in Kimberley, British Columbia. Vibes.
I know where that is.
Very bad. Peace sign, then a peace sign, then a star sign. That's a lot of emojis.
I want to point out one thing, Sean, before we move on. And I'm going to say this because Katie's not here to defend herself. And is that low-hanging fruit? Is that a low blow? Is it weak on my part? Absolutely.
Yeah, but we accept that here.
Based on Katie's texts, and I want to see if you agree with me here, I'm surprised that she's not like a big astrology girl.
Do we know for a fact that she's not? We do have an update from Katie, by the way. Is Katie into astrology? She said, not big into it, but I'm trying to believe in more shit. I'm a Scorpio, which apparently means I'm passionate and a bit mean and slutty. The more you know, folks.
I'm trying to get into more shit. Katie Caldwell, April 23rd, 2024.
And speaking of getting the party started.
For the victory lap, though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I should overcome, what for? Train on the trees, please walk my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands and stormy shore seasons in the year, yeah. Switch gears, we keeping haters in the rear. After blood, sweat and tears and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. It's a day, we break through. 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 It's a day, we break through.
Good morning, Gridiron Podcast Nation, or good evening, wherever you're listening, or whenever you're listening to this podcast from. Welcome to episode, what are we, Nick, 32 now?
31.
31. Welcome to episode 31 of the Gridiron Podcast.
My bad.
I know. I always rely on that ticker, and you screwed up my intro. Way to go,
I'm
Nick.
sorry.
Welcome.
I screw up the outro too. But for those of you watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, we'll overkill it. We'll put it on the lower third and on the ticker. There you go, Sean.
There we go. Welcome to episode 31 of the Gridiron Podcast, your favorite podcast covering exclusively Formula One and football. We don't discriminate. All kinds of football. We might even talk soccer, but probably not. I am Sean Barie, and if you're watching, as Nick said, on Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube, over in the left-hand box, there he is, Nick Shook, holding down the fort in the land, Cleveland, Ohio. Cavs in 4, baby. Cavs in 4. No Katie Caldwell tonight. She has the night off because she is entertaining friends over in Western Canada, in British Columbia, because the Canucks are playing tonight. And currently not going their way right now. Vibes are bad. We'll check in with Katie periodically via text to get a vibes check. Canucks are playing the Nashville Predators in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's currently 1-0 Preds in Game 2. Canucks do have a 1-0 advantage in that series, though. But this is not a hockey podcast. This is not the Gridiron Ice podcast. It's the Gridiron Podcast, and we're going to start with the grid of that title tonight because, Nick, Formula One just wrapped up in China for the first time in 5 years since before COVID. We were back in Shanghai, and it wasn't the world's best race, but it also didn't disappoint. The weekend as a whole didn't disappoint.
China. Shanghai, man. They put on a show. Okay, so Sean, if you go back a few years, obviously we haven't raced since 2019, but the track has been on the game, and a lot of my Formula One experience as I became a fan came from racing in a Formula One league, and we always raced in China. It was always my favorite place to race. One of my favorite places to race. It's a grueling track, and it was so satisfying to watch these cars' tires get absolutely shredded by the track. The soft was a non-starter of a tire, which we'll get into that because one team made a very peculiar decision that I think affected the outcome of the race for them. And it turns out for some cars, the hard tire ends up being the best. It's always fun, I think, in my opinion, Sean, when you go for a 2-stop, or you're able to extend and just get a 1-stop, and the hard or the medium is the best tire. I always find that the longevity of it, it just adds to the intrigue of it. And the track itself, the layout, I had people jumping on my Twitch stream doing Madden yesterday where they were like, I loved the idea that you could overtake in multiple ways. The track itself did not demand one specific line. You could take different lines. You could still execute overtakes. You could be creative within the track. Any track that's like that to me that doesn't limit the availability of opportunities for you as a driver allows you to be creative, I think just adds to the entertainment. It makes for a better race, which oftentimes we don't see because of the way Red Bull is dominated. It made for a fantastic weekend, in my opinion. We got a sprint race out of it. We had 2 qualies because of the sprint race. Tons of reason to watch. Totally lived up the expectation. Exceeded expectation to me. I can't wait till we race there again next year.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I thought the weekend as a whole was a little lackluster-ish. I mean, I get it. Like there was action, there was stuff to keep you interested, but the race as a whole, and to me, that's the most important thing, is the race, was kind of just meh. But there were a lot of talking points, and we'll get to those. I think the worst part of the weekend for us, being in the eastern part of the United States, was just the time change. I mean, really hard to stay up to 3 a.m. to watch that race, but you did have a nation of over 1 billion people on hand to watch that race, so I don't think they were hurting for ratings. The other thing that kind of was a little iffy about the race is I've never seen a track spontaneously combust multiple times, Nick, and that happened over the weekend where the grassy areas would just combust. We still don't know why. The FIA released a statement saying they're looking into it, but they still don't know why.
Well,
has someone been fracking in Shanghai? Is
John,
the pollution too high?
Look,
What happened?
warming,
The track side.
Global warming is a thing. Climate change is a thing. Fires are a thing. Was there a wildfire on the track? No. But it was entertaining.
Darn close.
I mean, how often does a practice session get red flagged because of fire in the grass? That's great. It's as good as when we were in other places in the past and you had wildlife on the track. Any sort of variable that we don't typically see to mix it up just adds to the intrigue and makes it a more entertaining experience for me, at least.
Or missile attacks in Saudi Arabia. Less funny, though, on that.
Not interesting, not entertaining. That's frightening.
So let me go to the podium predictions that we had for China real quick, because you, me, and Katie all had some iteration of the entire podium being Red Bull and Ferrari. We differed on who was going to be 1, 2, and 3. We all said Max was going to win, which he did. We all differed on who would be 2 and 3. I believe Katie had, if I go back here real quick, I don't want to be wrong.
Katie had Max, Carlos, and Charles Leclerc.
So she had a double Ferrari podium. I had Max, Checo, and Charles, and then you had Max, Checo, and Carlos. So you and I are pretty close. So we were all thinking that, of course, Red Bull is going to be fast. They're always going to be fast. But we also thought that Ferrari was going to still be that dominant number 2 car. Not the case this weekend, Nick. Who is the dominant number 2 car?
Oh, buddy, put your papaya on. Oh, actually, it's papaya.
It's papaya.
Put your papaya on, my friend, because it was your boy Lando Norris with his best finish of the season. Harkened back to his P2 finish in Silverstone last year, the moment that McLaren got their shit together and really figured out how to put a car that looked like it had a rocket ship attached to the back of the vehicle there. A great drive, though. And here's the thing is, it wasn't just because their car is good. It was because the strategy and the way Lando managed his tires was damn near perfect, Sean. I mean, my God, he's driving and we're listening to team radio during the race and we're like, wow, Lando's in first. Okay, now he's in second. Can he hang on to this? Those tires, they're about the same age as some of the Ferraris, but that were right behind him. But I don't know, man. I don't know. And you heard the team radio just talking about, all right, so what are we doing? We're going to pit again? And they're like, looks like everyone's on plan D. And apparently plan D meant we're going for, what was it? The one stop. We're going long.
Yep.
We're trying to make these things last to the end.
And they did.
Not only did he make them last, he pulled away. By the final few laps, there was no threat whatsoever. He had that thing in the bag, baby. Lando Norris with the best performance of the weekend, driver of the day, and what a day it was for the man himself, Lando.
It would also be a much better day for McLaren. Lando coming home in P2, Oscar Piastri coming home in P8. After the race, Oscar said as much that P5, basically Carlos's, because Ferrari came home 4 and 5, Charles in 4th, Carlos in 5th. P5 was up for grabs if he didn't get into a little bit of a wreck. We're going to talk about that in a second because, oh boy, are we going to talk about that wreck. But I think McLaren are just one of those teams where you don't know what's going to happen. You think you know what's going to happen, and then You don't, because this is a track that this team should not be good at. It has those long sweeping corners, those hairpins that the McLarens are not good at. Kind of almost like Hungary last year when after Silverstone, we thought, well, we're going to Hungary next, which is the complete opposite of Silverstone. So McLaren's not going to be good there. And boom, Lando does another podium. That is when McLaren turned their car around. And you can dog them. Again, we talked about this last week. You said, when's McLaren going to put it all together? Well, here's the thing. The only thing we can dog them for is they're not Red Bull right now. But they are starting this season a heck of a lot better than they've started any season in the past decade. And they still have yet to upgrade their car. Upgrades coming in Miami. So the future looks bright for McLaren. Of course, upgrades can go both ways, but you hope that they go in the right direction. So that should be fun in Miami. But yeah, a great day for McLaren overall, especially in your fantasy points, Nick, because you have both Oscar and Lando.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so I mentioned the crash that it didn't take out Oscar, but it damaged his rear diffuser, which absolutely destroyed his pace. And it's kind of funny that you look at these cars. They're designed almost as a whole. So if you damage a rear diffuser, well, then the pace just drops. Doesn't matter if it's, the car is still basically intact. It's you broke a 5-cent washer somewhere on the car and, well, the pace is gone. It's just funny how that works in the F1 world now. But Nick, take us through, if you would, the crash. I don't want to call it a crash. The dumb effery that happened.
Actually, I'm going to need you to do that because the
you
crash
want me to do it?
Yeah, but before you do that, I want to ask you one simple question, Sean. Might be early. I might be getting ahead of myself, but do you happen to have your podium shoes ready? Are they polished? Are they sitting in your closet waiting to be broken out for the special occasion, the right time? Because as it stands right now, and like I said, I may be getting ahead of myself, but as it stands right now, driver standings, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Red Bull, dominating, right? Ferrari right behind them, Charles Leclerc holding a 7-point lead over his teammate Carlos Sainz. But right behind them, Mr. Lando Norris at 58, Oscar Piastri at 38. We got a lot of season left, my friend. And if they perform like they did last weekend, are you ready for one of them to make it up in a P3 at the end of the season? Do you have the right footwear to step up on the podium and join the Red Bull boys up there? Because I'm thinking it might be possible.
If there was a season in the last couple of years, aside from what was that 2021 when Daniel won in Monza?
Yeah, last lap Lando that year.
Yeah, and then also in Russia where Lando should have won. Aside from 2021, this season is the best chance McLaren has to win an actual race. They had one weekend last year, most likely in Qatar, that they actually could have won a race, and it just didn't happen. This year, they definitely have a chance to win a race, especially if they keep progressing as they have, because week by week, they have gotten closer not just to the Red Bulls, but to the Ferraris. And that's trouble for the Tifosi, because you don't want that team in papaya breathing down your neck. You want to be clear and free to chase Red Bull, which the Ferraris have been able to do up until now. Now you got Zach Brown, and you got the team from Woking right behind you.
You got that wind tunnel, baby. That wind tunnel's fully functional.
You've got those papaya cars, those papaya and black cars right in your rear view mirrors, and I'm sure the Italians don't fancy that. Back to the crash, though, if I may.
You may.
I don't know how I can even explain this. Basically, this was at hairpin turn 14. I hope I got that turn right. And cars starting to bunch up. This was right after the safety car ended, and Lance Stroll is right behind Daniel Ricciardo, who is right behind Oscar Piastri. And as cars often do
it's the same
at a hairpin turn. I'm sorry?
I thought we were talking about separate crashes. I am very well aware of this crash, but continue.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Lance Stroll crash.
Yes.
I'm talking about Lance Stroll. We routinely give him dog ratings on this podcast. So Lance Stroll bunching up with Daniel Ricciardo, with Oscar Piastri, with basically every other car on the grid. Heading into that turn 14 hairpin turn, Lance Stroll just yeets himself and his Aston Martin into the back of the V-carb of Daniel Ricciardo, who was having a good weekend. He was actually, all things considered, having a good weekend. Rumors swirling. Will he be replaced with Liam Lawson by Miami? His performances need to improve. You know, he's under pressure again for the umpteenth time in his career. And Lance Stroll just eats himself. The funny thing is, when you look back at the onboard camera, Lance Stroll wasn't even looking at Daniel Ricciardo, who was about a meter in front of him. He was looking to the right. He was looking at the corner. You can see his helmet turns, and then bam, his car just goes right into it. And that would be all fine and well if after the race in the media pen, he didn't blame Daniel for the crash. And afterwards, Daniel is alerted to the fact that Lance blames him. And I mean, you feel for Daniel Ricciardo at this point in his career. Nothing has gone right aside from the one weekend with McLaren. Nothing has gone right since he left Red Bull 5 years ago. And now you have this Nepo baby saying, oh, you caused me to crash into you. Bro, you weren't even looking at me. You were looking off into the distance somewhere.
There's a brake pedal. It's your left foot. Use it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, Sean, because, you know, like you said, Daniel was having a good weekend for the first time in seemingly ages. He was out racing his teammate, Yuki Tsunoda, throughout the weekend. And he was contending for points for the first time in the year. And suddenly he gets wrecked from behind. He's able to continue the race, but that rear diffuser, man, just like Oscar dealt with it, Daniel dealt with it too. And it really broke my heart when, I don't know, maybe 5-10 laps later, you hear Daniel radio.
Continue. They double DNF'd. V-carb double DNF'd.
Not without first trying to continue. And then he said, I have no rear. He said, my rears are gone. I have no grip back there. And part of that was because that diffuser was just half gone. And he had just, like you said, Sean, these cars are so specifically designed with aerodynamics and everything, especially the focus on downforce and ground effect, that if you affect one of those aerodynamic pieces, the whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket. It really does. And for him, he wasn't able to maintain the pace that he had before. He was essentially a sitting duck, and before long, he went to the pits and they retired him. And it was sad because they had Ted Kravitz down there on the F1 broadcast, and he's live as Daniel pulls into the pits, which we're thinking maybe they're going to do a tire change. And he goes, I can see it. Half of his diffuser's gone. And it's like, that explains why he can't keep the pace anymore. And he goes, oh, that's just so terrible. I mean, half of it is completely missing. No wonder he was struggling. And in that moment right there, he DNF because they parked the car in the garage from there. And that was just so sad for me.
I just want to know the audacity, because Lance Stroll has it. He absolutely has it. And afterwards, when you blame the driver whom you crashed into, if you're out on the highway, Nick, if you're out on 90, if I'm out on I-4 and someone rear ends you, they're at fault. Okay.
Actually, Sean, I have a funny story about that from when we were in college. Snowy day, end of the semester, maybe near exam time.
On a monologue, but okay, go for it.
Week prior, I know, and I'm interrupting you as I always do. And I'm driving. This is freshman year, so I'm commuting. I'm driving down 261 toward campus, and it's very snowy. I'm in my Honda Civic, and I'm sitting at a stoplight. You know, those stoplights on that open road out there. And all of a sudden, I feel boom from behind, and I'm like, whoa! And my CD skips because I had a CD player back then because it's 2010. And I turn around and some girl's rear-ended me. And she gets out of the car. I'm sorry, my brakes locked up. I just slid right into you. And I was like, it's fine. Exchange insurance information. Everything's fine. We get a claim in there, so on and so forth. No big damage, right? But that's a common driving mistake that sometimes is affected by the elements. There were no elements at play here, Sean. Lance just wasn't looking. Like, driver error to the umpteenth degree. That is the essence of driver error.
He literally was not looking at the car in front of him. I don't know what he was looking at. And then to have the audacity, like I said, he had it, to go to the media pen afterwards and then blame Daniel Ricciardo for the crash. Sweet, innocent Daniel Ricciardo. How dare you? Seriously, this is a guy that we all call a Nepo baby. It's clear he is not one of the better drivers in F1, but he's had a couple of successes. He's had one pole. He's had a couple of podiums. Like, okay, he isn't completely useless. Well, in comes Fernando Alonso, a 42-year-old teammate that is absolutely just wiping the floor with him in the same machinery, finishing a minute ahead of him in some races. And now it becomes clear, yes, you are absolutely useless. You should be in the garbage bin right now. And the only reason you still have a seat is because your daddy owns the team. We can all see that. We know you can see it. And we think your daddy is starting to see it too. But then to go into the media pen after the race blame Daniel Ricciardo for the crash you caused. I mean, that's just that to me screams like someone that has never really had to answer for anything he's had to do before. He's never had to face consequences for any of his own actions. But I think he's going to have to soon.
Sean, I, as you know, am an NFL employee. I have NFL sources, right? Well, I happen to have one F1 source.
Oh, do tell.
Who happens to know that those who are sharing some smaller powers with Lawrence Stroll, Lance's daddy, they all know that Lance is not deserving of that seat. They all know that that team can be much better if Fernando was paired with a driver, say Sergio Perez, say somebody with actual racing chops and experience that could actually get the most out of that car. And they all know that that team is never going to reach its potential until Lance is gone. And it probably won't happen until Lawrence is no longer owner of the team, which means, unfortunately, my friend, we're going to have to just settle in and deal with this for years to come. Unless Lance does, and as you suggested, takes your advice, go surf some juicy waves, man. You once said on a podcast here on one of these episodes, we are going to have to continue to be subjected to this nonsense. And the worst part about it is when it affects other drivers who have jobs on the line, man. What are you going to do? You're some silver spoon guy who works for daddy's venture capitalist firm, but you happen to cause an injury in a car accident with a guy who works at a steel mill, and suddenly he can't work and he can't get workers' comp because he didn't get hurt on the job, and he's out of a job now because of you. That's what we're dealing with at an F1 level here. It's terrible.
Listen, Lawrence, if you're listening to this podcast, and I know you do, Lawrence, listen to me. Do me a favor. Go invest in an IndyCar team. Okay, it's a lot cheaper than F1. A lot cheaper than F1, but just as exciting to watch. Sometimes more so. Actually, often more so. Invest. You don't even need to buy the team. Just invest in an IndyCar team. Give Lance a seat here. It's a North American racing, discipline. He'll have a bunch of fans. Exactly. You'll have a bunch of fans here in North America. A lot of Canadians traveling to see your son. It'll be a lot better for you and literally everyone else that watches F1 if you just get him out of that seat. We usually give, and us and this Gridiron podcast team, we usually give Lance Stroll a dog rating on this podcast. Not always, but at least a couple times a season. Lance Stroll's official dog rating of the Gridiron podcast after race 5 in Shanghai, -20 out of 10.
And we don't have the Canadian queen, Katie Caldwell, here to defend her fellow countrymen. So we are going to take full advantage of her not being here to defend him. And even if she was, she wouldn't defend him either.
I don't think she can defend him. I don't think anyone can.
He's no Nicholas Latifi. I'll tell you that. Damn it.
At least Nicholas was fun to watch at some points. All right, I'm done literally dogging on Lance Stroll. He's not worth another.
Let's keep it on Aston.
Moment of my breath. What's up?
Let's keep it on Aston real quick because while Lance was out there ruining other people's races and his own, their engineers made a peculiar decision with their actual good driver, Fernando Alonso. And I want to know your take on this because I think they were victims of timing and over aggression because there's a safety car, right? I think it was Valtteri Bottas's car died, which, by the way, let's just point this out real quick. His car died. His engine blew up. Didn't blow up, but it died. And he had to pull off, but he was out of harm's way. He was way off the track. They continued the race under a yellow flag in that sector, and everything was fine. And then suddenly it becomes apparent that all of the marshals, which, by the way, are local volunteers, cannot get the car in gear to move it. They can't get it down to neutral from where it was, which it was going into a turn. So I can't imagine it was a gear beyond 3, maybe 4. And I don't know if they're just not familiar with paddle shifters or if something else was going on. But at one point, Sean, there's like 10 marshals surrounding the car trying to get this car
I sent you a
gear.
Picture and I said this was my favorite moment
Hilarious.
from the race.
It was fantastic. And
there were
that
literally
caused
10
the
people.
safety car. That caused the safety car that then prompted Aston Martin to pit Fernando. And what tire did they put him on, Sean?
They put him on a soft, and I think I want to say they saw an opening. They thought if we can just generate some speed, if these tires can last, because look at what Lando's doing. Like, there is an opening here for a podium. We just need a bit more speed. We need to lap faster than these other cars. I want to say that was their thinking, just because if we can get Fernando up there, what did he come home in? P6?
He came home in P7.
P7. Okay. So they saw an opening, they went for it. But like you said at the beginning of this podcast, Nick, this track just ate up those soft tires. This track literally spontaneously combusted, and it was absolutely melting these soft tires.
It was, and that's why I was just so curious as to why they would make such a decision. It's not like the race was within the last 15 laps. There was still a good chunk of the race left. I don't know what they were anticipating, because the thing is they got another safety car, but because of the way they timed it, they couldn't pit him again. And he was forced to try to take those softs to the end. And obviously he wasn't going to take the softs to the end. So he pits late and then has to fight his way through the field. And I think he gets around 3 cars before he ends up in P7. And everyone's watching and they're like, all right, is he going to get to George Russell in P6? Like, first off, Fernando drives his ass off, as he's done for decades, literal decades at this point. And at the same time, you're watching him and he picks off one. I think he picked off Oscar Piastri and he picked off Lewis Hamilton, and he may have come out behind Hulkenberg or just in front of him. And you're like, is he going to get there? And then you're looking at the laps that are left and you're like, there's no way. He was down like 8-9 seconds with like 5 laps to go. I'm sitting there because I remember watching it and I'm thinking, he's got a lap 2 seconds per lap faster than the guy in front of him. There's no way he catches him. And he finishes 5 seconds behind him, roughly speaking. And it's a bummer because he could have been P5, I think is what happened when he pitted. It was P5. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, why take that risk? I know Nico Rosberg was on the broadcast, right? And David Croft's trying to do his best to like rationalize.
Rein in Nico.
Well, it was an aggressive strategy, but I can understand. And Nico's just like, nah, regardless, it was a bad call. Like gave him no room.
You do have to kind of then put some blame on Fernando Alonso. At all of 42 years old, 2-time world champion. Where was he in vetoing his team, right? Like I talked about Russia and Lando losing that race earlier in the podcast. It's because his team said, do you want to come in for wet tires? And he said no. At that moment, his team should have brought him in. In this moment, Fernando should have said, nope, this is a bad idea, guys. You need to reconsider. Like, they're paying him all this money. His opinion has to count for something, right?
You would think. But then again, how many teams actively ask their driver during the middle of an F1 race what they should do? I mean, I know Ferrari does. But does any other team do that or not? Because I would imagine that some probably just expect their drivers to listen.
And look whose tires are actually holding up this year. Ferrari. Thank you very much. Question. Moving on. We already talked about Danny Rick. Pain for him. It sucks. But honestly, I think this probably gives him a little bit more of a leash, because that's not his fault that Lance Stroll is just a donkey in a donkey car. Not a donkey car. It's a good car.
It's a good car.
It is a good car.
Somebody asked Fernando if he wanted to take the Mercedes seat before he re-signed with Aston Martin.
Yes.
Just straight up goes, they're behind us. Why would I want to go to a worse team?
Why would I want to do that?
Hell yeah, dude.
We do have an update from Katie Caldwell over in Kimberley, British Columbia. Vibes.
I know where that is.
Very bad. Peace sign, then a peace sign, then a star sign. That's a lot of emojis. Very
V
weird.
for victory, peace sign, stars.
Vibes are very bad in Western Canada right now. The Canucks down 3-0 in the second to Nashville, and they only have 8 shots on goal to boot. Actually, Nashville has 3 goals on 11 shots. That's because they got Casey DeSmith, former Pittsburgh Penguin, in net. And I told Katie, hey, pour a double shot right now, because Casey DeSmith is not good. She's like, oh, he's been very good for us this year. He's given up 3 goals on 11 shots tonight.
Sean,
I'm not good at the math, but you do it.
That's not good.
That's bad. Bad vibes right now. Sorry, Katie. Moving on.
At that rate, Sean, that's 9 goals on 33 shots, right? That's not good. That's not good. Me, no, hockey idiot. Not good. I want to point out one thing, Sean, before we move on. And I'm going to say this because Katie's not here to defend herself. And is that low-hanging fruit? Is that a low blow? Is it weak on my part? Absolutely.
Yeah, but we accept that here.
Based on Katie's texts, and I want to see if you agree with me here, I'm surprised that she's not like a big astrology girl. Like,
do we know for a fact that she's not?
That's a good question. We don't. We have not.
You know what? Let me text her right now. I'm going to text Katie. And I'm going to do voice text. So you can
are you aware that Mercury is in retrograde?
Katie, are you big into astrology? ?
The first time I ever heard somebody do voice text, when I heard them say period, I was like, what the hell is going on? They're like,
what the heck are they talking about?
Can you make it here by 6 period? And I was like, first off, that deserves a question mark. Secondly, why are you punctuating your text with your voice?
Can you make it here by 6 period? Question. Hey, how about Alpine, man? They're still not great, but they're also now not the worst car on the grid. So good for them. Esteban Ocon comes home P11, had a shot at a point, just couldn't catch up to Nico Hülkenberg. I'm surprised you put in sneaky winners Alpine, sneaky winners Haas. That car is not terrible, man. That car is going to be able to fight for points all season long. But right now, Kevin Magnussen needs to start pulling his weights because Nico Hülkenberg looks like he belongs in F1, and Kevin Magnussen looks like he belongs back in IMSA. The other thing we do have to talk about, Nick, unfortunately, is the fantasy standings. If you're prepared to do that.
Yeah.
Would you like to do the standings?
We could bond over this, and she's not here, and she's really just, after I just took that low blow shot at her, like now I deserve this, I guess, because she's really hanging me out to dry right now in the favor of hockey, which I understand. But all right, so for those of you, should I screen share this? I'm going to screen share this.
Hold on, I'm just texting her to let her know I'm going to read this on the podcast.
Okay. I'm screen sharing our standings here and you're going to enjoy the graphic that shows up here. I don't know where you guys found this, but I don't know who put that in, but it is hilarious. All right. Your current F1 league, fantasy league standings through, Sean said it was race 5. So we're going to go with 5 races. Might be 6. I don't know. Sean is kicking our ass, folks.
Yes, sir.
He
scroll down just a little bit and you can actually see our teams.
That's actually not the stand. These are the standings. I don't know why that was there. Here is Sean.
Mr. I am 10 points clear of the field. Yes, sir.
P1 himself with his team comprised of Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, and Logan Sargent. Logan.
Can't all be winners.
You're right. 103 points for Sean. Big weekend. We were pretty close coming into the weekend. Sean starting to pull away a la Max Verstappen in the sprint race at Shanghai over the weekend, which, by the way, Sean, once he got around for Lewis Hamilton, guy just blew away from him to the point where Lewis was inspecting his car after because he's like, how is he that fast? Took him 10 laps to get around Lewis, pulls out like a 20-second gap at 9 laps. Insane. So Sean's P1 right now with 103 points. Big weekend for Mr. Sean Barie. Behind him, me with 93 points. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both scoring points for me, but the donkey himself, Lance Stroll, really bogging us down right now. And then Yuki Tsunoda with a tough weekend DNFing, and Esteban Ocon falling short of points, but interesting. And Kevin Magnussen, the worst of the two.
Esteban Ocon did get you a point, I believe.
He did, remember, because we eliminated the Red Bulls. Yes.
Correct. No, we have no Red Bulls.
By the way, before we get to Katie's points, actually, you know what? I'll put a pin in that. We'll go back to that in a second. Katie at 89 points, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, Alex Albon, Nico Hülkenberg, and, sorry, Sean, how do you say his name?
Hülkenberg.
There it is. And Zhou Guanyu, rounding out that team for her. So me and Katie are essentially having what we would like to call a mid-off. Yep, that's correct. Me and Katie having a mid-off with 2 mid-ass teams.
Best of the rest is up for grabs, and there's no shame in that, guys. No shame at all. We do have an update from Katie, by the way. Is Katie into astrology? She said, not big into it, but I'm trying to believe in more shit. I'm a Scorpio, which apparently means I'm passionate and a bit mean and slutty. The more you know, folks.
I'm trying to get into more shit. Katie Caldwell. April 23rd, 2024. Frame that, folks. That should be a mantra for you to follow as you read your moons or whatever the hell they do. My God, we have a comment. We have a chatter. It's Big B. The Sean and Shook pod is back. What? Yeah.
Yes, Big B. Welcome back to the old Sean and Shook podcast.
God, the more we talk about it, the more I wish she was here. But thank you, Big B, for checking in with us here. I actually have been advertising the show on the Twitch stream. I've also been advertising in public. I think we picked up 2 or 3 new subscribers over the weekend.
Awesome.
thanks to me pushing our podcast. So those of you who are new, welcome aboard. Those of you who are not new and have been here for a while, we appreciate your loyalty and continued patronage. Hopefully we live up to your expectations. All right, Sean, what's next?
Last one I got for you, Nick, is we were in China. We do have one Chinese driver in Zhou Guanyu. Afterwards, basically, anytime this guy breathed, anytime this guy let out a wet fart, the crowd cheered. But afterwards, he came home P14, so no points for Zhou. But afterwards, he was kind of bent over on the grid, crying. Because, this is a guy that grew up coming to these races, and here he is living out his dream in front of his country of over, like I said, 1 billion people. And you just saw the emotion overtake him. That is what I love the most about sports, when just life becomes larger than the sport itself. And it was really cool to see that.
Yeah. Every time he came around in front of the main drag grandstand, everybody got on their feet and roared. And the F1 coverage was not shy about showcasing that, which I thought was great.
Did I mention there's over 1 billion people in China?
Which they also highlighted on the broadcast. It's always great when you have a local tie to something, especially a big event like an F1 race. It just adds another level of human interest to it. And for a guy like Zhou Guanyu, who has essentially operated in relative obscurity in F1 with the team that he drives for, which prior to this year was Alfa Romeo, is now Kicksauber, Stake F1, however the hell you put it. I think I did it backwards. It's fun.
Stake F1 team, Kicksauber.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun to see somebody like that put on a pedestal in front of their home fans, because he even said, I dreamed of racing here as a kid, and to finally do it is insane. And it was really cool for him to get out and wave and then have that emotion overcome him to where he broke down briefly before walking off. It was cool that they gave him a parking spot. They put, first off, that usually they put the winners, the top 3 drivers, the podium drivers, in Parc Ferme, which is usually near the paddock.
Well, he's the first Chinese driver in Formula One history.
Yeah.
I don't want to say you need to give drivers a participation trophy just for being in their home country, but this is a huge moment.
Absolutely. And to put him on the same plane as the people who finished on the podium there, because they put them out on the main drag instead of the start finish straight, instead of putting them in Parc Ferme, was just really cool. It was an opportunity for them to honor him, and for F1 to be like, hey, we see you, we know what you mean to your people, and because we're here, we're going to showcase that. I just thought that was really special. It was a really nice touch on, again, what I thought was a great weekend in Shanghai.
What I want now is in 2 weeks when we go to Miami, Florida, every single time Logan Sargent.
No,
I don't care if he sucks, Nick. He is a Florida man. Every single time he drove with the Florida flag on his helmet last year. Every time that man passes the start-finish line, you get on your freaking feet and you cheer on the Florida boy. Yeah.
Sean, if there's one thing you learned from living in Florida, it's that fans don't know stories like that. They're at the event because it's an event, not because of the action on the track.
I can neither confirm nor deny that, Nick.
Logan Sargent, who's that? That sounds American. Sure, we'll root for him.
I've also
Where's the tequila?
I've also yet to meet someone that was actually born in the state of Florida, and I've lived here now 6 years.
Oh, that's like me in LA. The one running narrative in LA is that everybody in LA is not from LA.
That checks out.
Yep.
Let's switch gears, Nick. On to the other half of this podcast, we talk about Formula One and football, and let's move on to the NFL. It is NFL draft week, but before we get into the draft, Nick, let's do some fun things first. Let's do a reverse of what the rundown says. Let's do uniforms first. You okay with that?
Yeah, baby. I love the aesthetic of
football. Let's get into the dessert before we get into the meat and potatoes of the NFL draft. We have some new uniforms. 3 new teams, or not 3 new teams. 3 teams have new uniforms. One of them being the Detroit Lions. Nick, pull up the pictures because the Lions are going back to those old classic uniforms that we saw Barry Sanders running with a bit of a modern twist. I love the blue. Show it again.
I tried. There we go. I want to pull.
You had it.
Here.
There we go. So we've got 3 new uniforms. We've got the Honolulu blue with the silver helmets, blue face mask, silver pants. Then you've got the white uniforms with the blue pants and the same helmet, and then you have black uniforms with a Honolulu blue helmet, a black lion logo, black face mask, and black center stripe down the helmet. I love these uniforms. I love them so much. The only thing I hate about them, Nick, is on the black and the white uniforms. So on the alternate and the away, they have big old chest lettering. Lions on the black one, Detroit on the white one. It's not as bad as the Cleveland from when they had that horrible uniform transformation. I'm sorry, those were the bottom of the barrel. That's always
terrible,
easy.
terrible.
Yeah, really bad. But
first team to do that, by the way. First team to do that.
I'm okay with the name being on the chest if it's done correctly. This was done half correctly. Okay, it's small enough so it's not just in your face, but it's also still kind of collegey. It's just like NFL teams, they don't need to tell people who they are. We already know who they are. I will give these uniforms, these combos, I'm going to still give them, despite my one gripe, an 8.5 out of 10. These are sexy. I love the home uniform. I love that they went to the blue face mask. This screams Barry Sanders.
Yep.
The away uniform, great. Whatever. It's the same thing that we've been used to seeing. They went back to block numbers, which is great. And then Dan Campbell promised his team, hey, if we win the division, I'll bring you black uniforms. Well, they won the division. They won the North. And now we got black uniforms. And I love that the black uniforms have a Honolulu blue helmet and a black face mask. I love this uniform combo. This is chef's kiss. Only a few notes, 8.5 out of 10.
All right, I'm going to call bullshit on the Dan Campbell story. I know they popularized that the moment that the jerseys were revealed, the uniforms were rolled out. This is a 2 to 3 year process, which means that they had these in the works well before they won the division, and they just
don't spoil our fun, Nick.
They lucked out. Don't play off Rod Wood, leader of the team. That they had to win the division before we got black uniforms. You were going to give them black uniforms regardless. It just
remember
happened to win the division.
Remember when Kent State had to make a bowl game to bring back the gold helmets, and then those helmets turned out to be like the worst thing ever created. Like just the worst thing ever created. If you want to laugh, look up the 2012 GoDaddy.com Bowl Kent State Golden Flashes uniform, and I will bet you have no idea what those helmets are. They're so bad.
I'm gonna find
pictures
because they were terrible, and actually
they were so bad. It took us almost an entire half of football to figure out what they were, and we went to the school.
The Kent helmets were actually supposed to look better than they did. The mock-ups were better than the actual execution, but it was bad.
They forgot like half the decals on the helmet.
I blame UConn. UConn at that time put a husky face as a stripe, and the face is above the face mask on the helmet, and then that was like the thing for 2 years, and then everyone was like, this looks like crap, let's not do that. That's why they did it, because Kent lacks ingenuity, because they don't know how to prepare for things like that. Back to the Lions real quick. So bullshit to you, Dan Campbell and Rod Wood, on the whole black uniform thing. You knew you had this in the works, and everybody in Detroit loved the black jersey from the Joey Harrington era and so on, the John Kitna era, and they wanted to come back, so they brought it back, right? I agree with you. The home uniform is delicious. It's beautiful.
The home uniform is a 10 out of 10.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful uniform. They couldn't. I mean, it's perfect. The silver pants with the matching striping to the sleeves. The sleeves, I don't know, Sean, if you know this, but one of the things that the Lions are trying to popularize within their branding is back in, I think, the 50s, the 60s, they had this logo that was partially inspired by the Ford Mustang logo with two vertical stripes and the lion, the prowling lion across it, right? They put in an alternate helmet last year. It looked like crap in practice, but the vision was there, right? So they take that same stripe and they make it a feature of their uniform. It's the helmet stripe, it's the sleeve stripe, it's the pant stripe on the silver ones, right? Home jersey, 10 out of 10. Can't get any better. It's traditional. We are going with the modern classic look across both collegiate and professional football levels. It's happening in college basketball. That is the new wave. Last decade, it was neon and all these adventurous things. Now it's going back to classic. Everything comes in cycles, right? Lions nailed it. Road jersey, very good. First gripe, no stripes on the blue pants. Put the silver stripes that match the sleeve stripes on the damn pants. You blew it. You blew it like the Browns blew it when they brought out brown pants with no stripes on them back in like 2013. You blew it, okay? Could have been better. Missed opportunity there. And the black uniform, I'm not a fan of black for black's sake. The Lions have a history with black now because they had one 15 years ago. Get it? I understand. That helmet looks awful. in the photo shoot.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, it's so
I disagree with
gaudy.
you. I
It's
love the
so
helmet,
gaudy.
man.
But
I do.
but allow me to say this. Under the lights, I think it'll look really good. I think it'll pop. The black lion will look cool. There's like white silver elements on the helmet. It's gonna look
man, I
great
like
in
the
those
helmet
instances.
just
But
because
it's very XFL to me. It's very Arlington, formerly Dallas Desperados to me.
I like it just because it is a little bit out of left field. It is a little bit off the wall, and I don't like something else that we'll talk about here in a second. But I love this uniform combo. Just honestly, I'm fine with the Lions on the black uniform just because it's an alternate. But home and away, keep them basically the same.
I'm
but
cool.
Just,
I'm cool with
white and
Detroit.
blue.
They're proud. They're proud of the city. You could see that when they made their playoff run this year. That's fine. It's not gaudy. It's not understated. It's in the mid-between point where it's okay. It's a little collegiate, but it's okay. But the other problem is they're gonna wear white pants with that, right? No stripes on those pants either. Put the freaking stripes in the pants, guys. It's not that hard.
But that home uniform, it's just, oh my God, it's so sexy that I have to give it.
And I didn't I didn't have a problem with their past uniforms that they just changed.
No, neither did I. No, I thought
too.
their past uniforms were great. But just that home uniform is so sexy that I have to give the overall package an 8.5 out of 10. Yep. Moving on, who else was it? It was Denver.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sean, we started with the best one.
We absolutely did.
It gets a little rough from here, folks. The
I
Denver
have
Broncos.
I have a feeling that you are on the same page as me for this one, but go ahead.
So the Denver Broncos have not changed their uniforms, largely speaking, since 1997. Back then, Nike was just getting in the NFL uniform game. Denver went to Nike and they said, give us something cool that's never been seen before. You got those stripes that went down the sides and then over the chest, the arching ones that became a staple of the Broncos look for so many years. Well, those are gone. And in their place, well, they're going to be the Oregon of the NFL, folks. They put
the UTSA Roadrunners.
Yes, they put a jagged stripe on the side to evoke a mountaintop, a peak of a mountain. They modified their trademark number font to make it a mix between block and current. That I'm fine with those. The orange is still the primary. I actually don't have a lot of problems with the uniform because I see what they were going for with the basics, right? They do look like University of Texas San Antonio. They do. They look like the Roadrunners. Yeah. But my big gripe, Sean, I think we're going to agree here, is while the home jersey's fine and the road jersey's going to look cool, and I like the interchangeability of uniform elements, I think everything should be fairly standard. If you're going to introduce, a pant striping on one pant, and then you're going to have another pair of pants, they should match it, but with different colors. I think that's important because it gives you options. But my God, Sean, I don't know what the hell they think they were doing when they rolled out the white helmet last year, and then they shoehorned it into the uniforms this year. A white helmet with a blue jersey and blue pants. You blew it. You blew it. You have a blue helmet. You blew it. Absolutely.
Here's the thing.
Blew it.
They also announced that they were going to bring back the throwback, John Elway uniform.
Those are tasty.
Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time until Denver petitions the NFL to wear those full time.
I don't think they have to. They may have to petition. Actually,
I think in due course we are going to see the Mile High collection that they are rolling out here just absolutely gone. I think we're going to see. I don't know if we're going to see the racing horse head. I don't know if we're going to see that go away, but we're going to see kind of the classic look return. You said it. It's a mix between modern and retro. This isn't that. This is something else entirely. This is more modern than anything else. It's not terrible, but it's also not good. And it just screams like they don't even have the name of the city or the team on the chest, but this screams Conference USA.
I was going to say the same thing.
This screams we play in the Western Athletic Conference in the FCS.
This weekend, the Denver Broncos take on the Marshall Thundering Herd.
Coming up on ESPN Plus. Coming up on ESPN Plus, it's UTSA versus Eastern Carolina. Yeah, these uniforms, I give them a 3 out of 10. They're not good. They're not terrible, but they're not good.
I think they achieved what they want to do, which I think was a 60% revamp. My biggest gripe actually with the uniforms is I hate it when teams try too hard to insert an element into the uniform built around storytelling. Big storyteller, right? But there are small triangles all over these uniforms. They all point up because I don't know if you know this, Sean, but Denver is the Mile High City. And by the way, if you've ever been to their stadium, which has had about 3 or 4 names now, it was at one point Invesco Field at Mile High, then it was Sports Authority Field at Mile High, and now I think it's just Mile High. If you go in the bowels of the stadium, as soon as you pull in as the visiting team, painted in big letters on the wall is that you are at altitude 5,280 feet, like everywhere. It's a big part of their identity. So what do? They double down. They put 5280 on the nose bumper of the helmet. There's a small inclusion of the element on the pants that you can't see unless you're looking at it with a microscope. And the triangles, man. They replaced their pointed stripes that match their jerseys with this more angular stripe situation that stops the crown of the helmet. And the stripe is made up of small triangles. There are small triangles under the armpits on the jerseys. Stop with the triangles, guys. You're not the Seahawks and their stupid little wing logo across the shoulders and the pants. Stop with the triangles. It's a freaking basic geometric shape. My 4-year-old nephew knows what a triangle is. I don't need it on your football uniforms.
Somewhere, Pythagoras is like, oh my God, it's beautiful.
I can totally calculate for the angles of this triangle.
Gets me hard.
What's it's not an isosceles triangle. What's the one where I obviously didn't do well in geometry.
My man, we graduated from college 10 years ago. You think I remember anything about triangles?
Types of triangles.
Scalene
triangle, isosceles triangle, equilateral. I think it's closest to equilateral triangle.
I don't know how else to describe this other than go watch a Texas San Antonio football game, and that is basically what these uniforms look like. That's why I give it a 3 out of 10.
That is the home of edge rusher who played for the Saints. Granderson. I should not bring Carl Granderson. No, he played in Wyoming. It's the other guy. Yeah.
Anything else to say about Texas San Antonio / Denver Broncos?
You blew it. Throwbacks are tasty. I hope that white helmet is only worn with white jerseys. I know they will force it with the blue jersey. If you're going to wear the blue jersey, wear the blue helmet, please. Don't be.
And the worst thing of all is we now get to watch Zach Wilson play in this uniform.
Yeah, baby. The Renaissance comes in Denver. All right.
Moving on. One more team got new uniforms. They are the Houston Texans, Nick. Another team that desperately needed a uniform overhaul, the same as the Denver Broncos. Since they were incepted in the league, they've never had a new uniform. So they finally get one. Not that their uniforms are bad, but they were starting to look dated. Like everyone else is getting new uniforms or have already had classic uniforms that didn't need changed. And, here the Texans are still with that 90s look. And they, 26 years later, finally get a new uniform. And, yeah, man, I think they knocked it out of the park, actually.
Are you ready for a lot of pictures, Sean? Because the Texans decided to throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And it turns out 4 noodles stuck up there. Now, one a little overcooked, but we'll get to that. We start with the home jersey, the home uniform, the most similar to what they had before. Gone are the pointed shoulder stripes.
Yes.
And in their place are the Atlanta Falcons approach when they redid their uniforms a couple of years ago, which is a team logo on the sleeve cap. Now, sleeves are getting smaller and smaller. There's less opportunity to do stuff with them, but that didn't stop the Texans. Now, they left the logo on the side here. They kept it simple. They kept it basic. They have a new type font for numbers. It's very aggressive. It's jagged. It's got curves and hard edges and all this. Curves and hard edges. That's quite a combination. All this stuff. They changed the nameplate color from white to red. I think it's going to be hard to see on TV. It's probably going to piss me off next season, but that's what they chose to do. They changed the pants striping. Overall, best choice right here is with this uniform. It's clean. I think it's fine.
They didn't change too much. Like you said, they got rid of the pointed shoulder stripes. That's fine. Again, that's what made it look like the 90s. And they just kind of cleaned it up a bit. Good job. This is good. This is, couldn't really ask for much more because their color scheme is strong. I mean, it's the Texas flag. It's navy, it's red, it's white, it's stars, it's stripes. That's what we like out of Texas. The away uniforms. I can't tell. Is this helmet navy still?
Yes, it is. It is actually called Deep Steel Blue.
Deep Steel Blue. Thank you. The away uniforms, they went with a more Atlanta Falcons look. And in fact, looking at this, it almost does look like the Atlanta Falcons because that is a very deep steel blue.
Yeah.
Almost looks black. The shoulder stripes are now horns from the Bulls, the Longhorns, whatever their logo may be. So that's what they got there. I like it less than the away or than the home uniform.
when I talked about them getting adventurous at the sleeves, this is where they did it. They kept the same helmet with these road uniforms, which can be interchanged with white and battle red pants, Liberty white and battle red. How do I know? Because I wrote it about 10 times today. I actually think this is their best uniform other than the home. I think this will look good on TV. And the reason is these bullhorn logos that they put on each sleeve, which I think is adventurous. It's unique. It's creative. The red line in between really makes it pop. The numbers are a bit much in my opinion, but I see what they were going for. Overall, you're looking for an aggressive appearance in these uniforms, and I think they achieve that when paired with this helmet. It will get interesting, though, if they try to mix up some of these elements, and that's where we really throw the restrictor plate off the car here and really let it rip, because after these, it gets a little crazy. Are you ready, Sean? Are you ready for the
Yes, which one are you
alternates?
going for next?
Oh, well, we're going to go with Battle Red, my friend. Battle Red. Because that horn logo on the sleeve is now on the side of the helmet, which I think is the best risk they took with these entire uniforms. They took their candy red helmets that had the Texans bull logo slapped on before, and it just looked like it was forced. They made it its own thing. Candy red helmet, candy red face mask, bullhorn logo that's blue with the same, but it's essentially empty on the inside with that accent line on the inside. They went for a bit of a monochrome look here with matching jerseys and pants that fit the elements that we talked about with the road uniform, bullhorn logos on the sleeves, wide stripe, thin stripe on the pants, same number font, blue outlined in white instead of white outlined in blue as it used to be on the red jerseys. But here's my problem, Sean. The bullhorn idea kind of gets messed up because if you look at it from the side, they're going in two different directions. It goes from the front to the back like a bull on the helmet proper, and then it goes from the back to the front on the jerseys. And I'm just going to be looking at it.
You do have a point there. You do have a point there, Nick. They did get the bullhorns a little crossed there. They did mess with the horns a little too much there. I still love these uniforms, and I think it's been way too long since they've just finally adopted the bullhorn as look, the Vikings use the Viking horn as their logo. The Eagles, the eagle wings. The Rams, the ram horn. Come on, it's right there. Just use it. You're right. That Texans logo on the helmet has always looked forced. I love these helmets. I do love these uniforms, and I had not noticed that the horns were going in two different directions until you just noticed it. So damn it, thank you for ruining my fun. I still love these because think about this, Nick. Think about, CJ Stroud leading this team, onto the field for a playoff game. They're wearing their battle red uniforms, and there's a red out in Houston. This is going to look amazing.
Yeah,
in the next 10 years.
Candy red, it's going to look fantastic. I am actually a big fan.
It's battle red, damn it, Nick. Give it its due.
Oh, well, yeah, it's battle red, but it's a candy paint. Those of you who are fans of lowriders understand. I've read recaps that they're too aggressive and everything else, and I think the number font does take it to that gaudy level. I think if you got something a little more subdued, it would really be near perfect. But I love the risk that they took with this logo because I do think, like you said, with the Vikings horn and with the Eagles wings and things like that, the Rams horn, this is the same type of thing. And whoever conceptualized this deserves a raise because if you look at the Texans logo and their branding and their identity, there's not a lot to do with it. And yet they said, what, let's put horns in the helmet. Let's see how we can make the best of it. And I think they actually hit a home run with that idea. I wish it would have been incorporated more than that, honestly, but it does make the red helmet its own thing. They also become the first team with multiple logos on different helmets, I believe, in the NFL as of now. Not the same logo in different colors, but an actual different logo. The Lions did it last year, but this is more in different applications. So these three I'm all good with. And if they stopped here, I'd be like, good job, guys. You updated
now
your
go
look
to
okay,
Nick, you said they hit a home run with this one. Now go to where they hit a swinging bunt.
Oh, they didn't even make contact with this one, my friend. This is
welcome to the XFL Houston Texans. Oh God. Oh, dog. Get it off the screen. Get it off the screen.
It's so bad. I saw the leak of this helmet and I thought, dear God, please don't be real. And it was real.
Yeah, same.
This uniform is a deep steel blue base with battle red numbers and the introduction of a new color that may be very familiar to those of you in Houston. Sean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Texans fans have longed for a return to the Houston Oilers colors, but they cannot do that because that is property of the Tennessee Titans, formerly known as the Houston Oilers, and for 2 years, the Tennessee Oilers, who moved from Houston to Nashville. Actually, they first moved to Memphis, I think, and then
Yes.
played a year in Vanderbilt before playing in Nashville at Nissan Stadium, which will soon be defunct when they build a new stadium in Nashville. They own the rights to that. So Houston can't wear those throwbacks, right? They can't command those colors. That is the Titans. So they decided we're going to find a workaround, and we're going to introduce the NFL's first City Edition uniform, which is a Color Rush all blue jersey with battle red numbers and this new H-Town blue, they're calling it, which is just powder blue. It's love your blue for the Oilers.
You're correct. When I saw this uniform, I thought this is a City Connect jersey, but for the NFL.
Yep.
And as a lot of these City Connect jerseys are in baseball, is just a swing and a miss, man.
Like Phillies this year?
Like Phillies, I mean, like Philly, like Pittsburgh. Like, God help you, Nick. You got one coming this year.
I'm so scared. I know
you should be, man. Like, most of these are bad, and people don't want to admit they're bad, but most of the City Connect jerseys are bad. This is bad. This injection of that Oilers blue and then the H logo with the star, like you're trying to play into being the Astros and the Oilers and the Texans. It's just too much. It's offensive to the eyes.
So the star comes from the Texans logo, which has a star as an eye in it. I understand that, but the H is in this weird font that apparently was the most requested font from fans. The H is ornate. Way overly ornate, and it's slapped on the side of the helmet, and like Sean said, it's an XFL uniform in my opinion. They outlined the Texans logo in this powder blue, H-Town blue. They made the eye in the Texans logo, the star eye, red, and they put it on the side of the sleeves. Everything else matches the other elements in terms of pant striping, and that helmet wears the H on the side. And the Texans thought they'd get real cheeky with their logo placements with these uniforms. If it doesn't have a Texans bull logo on the side, it's got it on the back. And if it's got it on the side, it's got the H on the back. And if it's got the H on the back, it's got the bull logo on the back. For some reason, they couldn't just be cool with one logo. They had to go to a bit of logo overkill. But this uniform, I'm going to say this. It's ugly. It's ugly. Way too much. It's like neon lights on a football field. But I think when they play a primetime game, it might look cool for a game. Kind of like when they first did Color Rush and the Jaguars came out in their like gold uniforms and everyone was like, oh,
don't you even dare. Don't you even dare.
For a moment, I was like, those are cool. I like
Don't
those.
you even dare.
Like
Get out of
Bortles,
here, Nick.
baby.
Get out of here. No, this uniform is terrible. I like the home uniform. I love the battle red uniform. The away uniform is whatever. I was prepared to give this a 7.5 out of 10, but this uniform alone knocks it down to a 5.5 out of 10 for the whole package.
I hope that we see this once and never again. And if that's the case, then these are 7.5 to 8 on the scale. The Lions did better than either team. The Broncos, mid 7. Texans, 7.5. Okay. None of them are great. I'm probably being generous with those ratings. We have a comment from one of our viewers, John Slater on Twitter says, all red is awful. I disagree.
Oh, John.
Different strokes. Different strokes. He also has an X through a soccer ball as his avatar. So you're at the right place. We don't talk about soccer here. That wraps up the uniform talk show.
I do love soccer, Nick. I don't know what you're talking about.
But we don't talk about it here.
Probably talked about way too much about the frilly stuff here with the uniforms. So we got to move on to the NFL draft because it starts in now about 36 hours, Nick. We have got the NFL draft coming up in Detroit, of all places, where we just mentioned. So I'm going to hit you with a couple questions. This is how we're going to do this. I'm going to hit you with a couple questions, and you, as our NFL.com writer, are going to provide the answers to those questions. So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's going to be the number 1 overall pick, Nick?
Oh, that will be Caleb Williams from USC.
Okay. Started off easy for you. Started off easy. I want to know this because there are 5 quarterbacks that are supposed to go in the first round. Do you think all 5 are going to go in the first round, by the way?
Yeah. I'm most curious to see where Michael Penix lands.
Okay.
Because I think he's going to land in like the teens to the 20s, and whoever gets him is probably going to feel as if maybe 2 to 3 years now they got the most value for their pick.
Okay.
And that's because I'm just not certain about Drake May or JJ McCarthy. And And
hold on 1 second.
Penix has things to clean up though. Like he's not a guaranteed thing. None of these guys are, but
no, I exactly. I really don't think any of them are, even Caleb Williams. And the funny thing is Michael Penix went to high school about a mile that way. From where I'm currently sitting in Tampa, Florida, Tampa Tech High School. He's a Pasco County guy, but he finished off high school at Tampa Tech. The guy that I'm most curious about isn't just Michael Penix, who is -2 knees, but it's JJ McCarthy, because we watched this guy progress over college, and at no point in his college career, even though he won Michigan a national title, I'm sorry, Nick, at no point did I think, wow, that JJ McCarthy, he's going to be something in the NFL. But now there's this narrative that's starting to churn a little bit. I don't know if it's Jim Harbaugh, singing praises of him now with the Chargers, of course. I don't know if it's just a good PR agent. But now we're talking about JJ McCarthy, being like a top 5 draft pick, where at the end of the college season, when he walked off the field as the national champion, that was not the case. So what happened?
Brother, as soon as I landed in Indy for the combine, I started hearing it. 12 hours into my stay, I couldn't escape it. 6 days later, it was even more unavoidable. I don't know if he's got a great agent, if they've got the PR staff equivalent of one trying to drum up a presidential campaign, but this has been the talk for months. Just wait till you see how athletic JJ McCarthy is. He's going to surprise a lot of people. He's a fast riser. He's going to be the guy that everybody doesn't see coming. Since February, guys, his combine workout kind of sucked. He was very inconsistent with his passes, which matches his college tape. Is he athletic? Yes. Can he scramble for extra yards, especially on third down, the bane of my existence the last 3 years against Ohio State? Yes. But he's nothing special with the arm. And I came to the conclusion after reviewing some of his tape and cross-checking with another player that came to mind, especially once he got projected to the Minnesota Vikings. Sean, I hate to say it, but I think the hype train is going to lead the Vikings or another team, the Vikings to trade up or another team to spend a pick on Christian Ponder 2.0. Like he's mobile. He can pick up extra yards with his feet. You could see the potential, but I don't think it's actually there. I don't think it's real. I think his ceiling's low. I think he's a winner, but he also played for a very good program built by Jim Harbaugh. And ultimately, he's not going to live up to what you expect from a guy who's going to get drafted that highly. Like when I got to Vegas for the Super Bowl, one of my colleagues went to Michigan, diehard Michigan fan, loves to get in my shit about Ohio State. And I sat down with him at the bar at the hotel the first night and said, dude, there's no way JJ McCarthy is a first round pick. He's not that good. And he goes, he's going to go in the first round. And I said, somebody's going to make a massive mistake. And here we are, less than 2 days away from somebody, in my opinion, making a massive mistake. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'd rather have Baker Mayfield than JJ McCarthy. And it's not even close. It's just not there. He made a pass in a tight window against Ohio State that went viral on social media, of course. It was a bad throw. He lucked out that the defender turned away from the ball at the last second and didn't see it coming, and it fit it through like a needle hole for a big gain in that game. But like if that defender keeps his head forward, he's picking it off, and it's a terrible throw. And that was like his best throw of the year. He's not that good. He is Christian Ponder, and I'm sorry for whoever takes him. I'm standing by that right now.
I almost wanted to say he reminds me of Mac Jones, right? He's a field general. He's a winner. That's what he does. He wins. Here's the thing. I think that would be an insult to Mac Jones because Mac Jones in college was still very, very good. He was a Heisman finalist. JJ McCarthy was never that. What did he throw for, like 30 yards in the national championship game?
And
like,
here's the thing.
Hold on, Nick. If he was that good, why didn't he play that good? If he was that good, why didn't he play that good?
It's the old rings matter argument. Like he played a great role in his team and he won a national championship. He won a ton of games, and I'm never going to fault the guy for that. But we're not talking about wins. We're talking about traits, skills, and potential. And it's just not the total package ain't there, guys. Now,
there's a reason Troy Smith didn't go in the first round. Graham Harrell didn't go in the first round.
Troy Smith won a Heisman Trophy. Like, you're telling me JJ McCarthy was better than him? No.
Can you
imagine what are we doing here?
If Troy Smith would have been the first overall pick in this day and age.
Yeah, this is the problem. I don't know what it is if we're like in this microwave society where like I'm going to this draft and I'm thinking, dude, there's so many good players at other positions that's not quarterback, and we're not talking about it because we have 5 quarterbacks that everybody wants to draft in the first round. Like, I dream of a world in which 26 out of 32 teams have starting quarterbacks. It's never going to happen, but I dream of that because then we can take a little bit of the emphasis off the players coming out of the draft and stop overdrafting guys that don't deserve it and actually take guys according to their ability, best player available, or even team need, which often drives the quarterback decisions. That would be perfect. And in that scenario, JJ McCarthy ain't going in the first 20 picks. I'm sorry. And neither.
Let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this. Who or what position then are you looking at? What should we be looking at other than the quarterback position?
I think there's a ton of depth at offensive line. I think there's a lot of guys that some people are not paying attention to that are going to end up being quality players. This is the deepest offensive line draft I've seen in my time writing, not working at the NFL, but writing. There was a really good tackle class like 4 years ago, and I think 3 of the 4 panned out. Well, 2 of the 4. Tristan Wirfs and Andrew Thomas panned out. Mekhi Becton was a massive bust, and Jed Wills is just average at best. Those are the first 4 taken in that class. I think that was 2020. They're super deep across the board. You have Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon is like the consensus #1 center, but I like the kid from Wisconsin, Tanner Bartolini. I thought he had a great workout at the combine. I'm really interested to see where he lands. There's depth at tackle. There's depth at guard. Kid from Holy Cross that played guard blew me away at the combine. Love to see where he's going to land. Teams are going to get some serious talent that is going to develop into consistent producers long-term, the Joel Bitonio types, the guys that are going to be with your team for 10 years and do a rock solid job and go to a couple Pro Bowls or however many that you want to see them go to. That's what's in this draft. So I'm excited about that. Corner, I think there's like 3 or 4 corners, like going into this maybe a year ago, Kool-Aid McKinstry was probably the top guy. I think he's number 4 now. You got guys like Terrion Arnold and Quinion Mitchell from Toledo, Matt guy, among the top corners. And the kid from Clemson who ran a super fast 40 and then hurt his groin or hip flexor or whatever. He's also up there. He's a little skinny, but I'm curious to see where he lands. Edge rusher's got some talent, and receiver, dude, super deep at receiver. We've heard a lot of people talk about that. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Romo Dunze, Neighbors. You can keep going down the list. There's like 5 guys that are all probably first round talents. So essentially what's going to happen is those quarterbacks are going to go and it's going to create a glut, at tackle and at receiver and edge rusher and corner, and like teams that are picking in the teens are actually going to be really happy to be picking there because they're going to be paying them a little bit less on their rookie contract. And they're also going to be getting guys that usually would be top 5 picks later in the first round. So going to be very interesting to watch on day one.
I think you hit it right on the head there. There's all this talk about the quarterback class, and the teams that do not need a quarterback are probably like, yes, this is
hell perfect. Yeah, dude. I would love
because
to
we don't need to, like you said, we don't need to pay top 5 money for a guy that we can pick up at 15, 18, 25. Speaking of, I would be remiss. I'm sitting here in Tampa. Nick, I got to ask you, what do you think the Bucs are going to do? They're sitting there at 26. Jason Light has never been afraid to trade up, even if it's just 1 pick, but he's never been afraid to trade up. He's never been afraid to make a move. They're sitting there at 26, and at his pre-draft press conference a couple of weeks ago, he was asked, when do you think you'll know like what your window is going to look like, what the availability of the guys you want is going to look like? And he said around pick 20, which is curious because that's where my Pittsburgh Steelers are drafting. So where do you see the Bucs going in this draft?
Well, it's interesting because, when it comes to projecting what a team does, I think a lot of it has to do with the way the draft unfolds, which is like mock drafts are fun because you can kind of project and lay out a roadmap and then react. Like you get to pick 18. You're like, well, these guys have already got off the board, so we're going to look in this area. I hate it when you just try to say, well, they need this guy at this position, because sometimes those things don't match up and teams trade back or they just take best player available. And a lot of teams are matching them up with edge rushers. But if we spent time last year talking about the Bucs, it was either about Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, or it was about Yaya Diaby and freaking players like that. They went out and got Randy Gregory. I don't know if the need is necessarily as dire as people are projecting it to be. They could get a nickel like Tavierre Thomas, former Brown, came over from Houston. He's on that team. Christian Eisen had a nice little year last year, so I don't know if they necessarily need that there. And on the offensive side, I like their receivers. I tend to look at offensive line, but they have invested in that a lot in the last few years. They got Opeta from Philly. Cody Mock was a pick last year at guard. So I don't know if they go there either. So if we're going to go edge rusher, you had a lot of people projecting guys like Jared Verse in that range. Dude, he ain't going to be there. Okay. Listen, before the show, I pulled up 4 different mock drafts because I was like, where are people mocking him? Dude, it's anywhere as early as like 15 all the way down to 27, which is right in that range of where the Bucks pick, right? But if it's me and I'm the Raiders at 13, I'm taking him and pairing him up with Max Crosby, baby. Because Jared Verse is a freaking dog, and he's going to be a dog at the next level. And if you are ignoring him now and looking at other players like Dallas Turner, who's smaller but wins with explosion and maybe will be the guy, with his team in the future, you're making a mistake. Jared Verse is built for the NFL. That guy's going to come in and make a difference as long as he can stay healthy. So I don't know where the Bucks go necessarily, but like we said, a lot of this top talent's going to trickle down. So I'm very curious to see. They could use a corner. I mean, right now it's Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum, and I don't know how you feel about Zion McCollum. I don't know if a player's going to be there. Maybe like a Max Melton could be there. They could go a number of different directions.
A lot of players, or a lot of fans down here, they do like Zion McCollum because he's been able to play that kind of, Swiss Army knife type role, safety, corner. That's why they traded Carlton Davis.
Yeah, but I want a starter out there. I want a perimeter corner.
No, I know there are a lot of needs
because
fans saw them get carved up by Jared Goff, the Detroit Lions, and said we were a defense away from being in the NFC title game, and then all bets are off. Who knows what happens there? So yeah, they definitely need help on the defensive side in the secondary too. I don't know if they're going to address that in free agency or in the draft. I just know that that's probably where they're looking. The offense is set. Like they could use a center, right? Robert Hainsey was not great last year for them. They need a center. But on the offensive line, they're pretty solid. Cody Mauch had a good year. Yaya Diaby on the defensive side was an absolute baller. So was Kalijah Kancey when he was healthy. Servassier Dennis, again, another guy from Pitt, was pretty good again when he was healthy. They have more question marks than people like to admit down here, but at the same time, they're still a very solid team, especially if Baker can continue what he did last year with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin.
That's fun. Like just looking at their depth chart right now, like I'm actually super excited to watch them play football this year because I think they have a lot of talent. They have some very intriguing depth that I didn't kind of realize. I did roster reset, but like didn't quite realize how deep they were. Sometimes it takes me a few weeks to look at the depth chart and kind of figure it out. But like everything I'm seeing a lot of Chop Robinson to the Buccaneers, the edge rusher out of Penn State. And I guess I could see that. There's actually every mock I pull up is Chop Robinson. Let's see one more here.
You think he'll be around at 26?
Everybody's got him in that range. Let's see here. Chop Robinson again. 3 mock drafts, 3 Chop Robinsons. So, I mean,
we are, man. We freaking are.
I think you'd be dancing and partying in the street if you got freaking Jared Verse 26. I mean, my God, guy's gonna be a dog, freaking dog.
All right, man. Anything else to talk about with the draft?
Let's check the notes here real quick. I don't think so. No, that's it. We've covered it.
All right.
And we're ready
Let's move on to our
I'm
final
I'm ready to move on to beyond the draft personally. I want to see it all shake out and move on.
I got you, man. I'll be covering the draft Thursday night at $1 Place over here in Tampa. I know you'll be keeping track of it too. We'll be up into the late hours of the wee morning, but let's move on to our final segment. Hate it or love it. Nick, what is your hate this week?
I don't know. This is the one thing I did not prepare for.
You never do.
I would say that I'm thinking about what happened the last few days, and I can't really think of anything I really hate.
He doesn't hold weight in his heart, folks.
I honestly don't. There's too much going on to hold that and dwell in it. It's just going to bring you down. I don't like it when people go door to door canvassing for things. Now, I did meet a very nice gentleman today who was canvassing to get a local solar installation going that the residents are in control of and can generate, electricity from solar power. I'm a big fan of that. But then he wanted me to write a letter, and I ran out of time. Like 4 things happened. I had to get out of the house, and he was coming back at 7:15 for it. I didn't leave one out for him. So I hate that expectation. I don't know. That's the best I got right now.
It's a random one, very specific one. My hate this week is I hate when people at the gym don't re-rack their weights.
Oh yeah.
That's a really, I know it's a trivial thing to hate, but man, is it annoying just because look, like you don't know who's going to be on that equipment next. You don't know if okay, so the most common one I see is like on a bench press or a machine, they'll leave, 2 plates or like a plate on each side. So 2 plates total. So that's 135 pounds. You don't know if the next person that's going to get on that bench is 105 pounds soaking wet. Like you just don't know. you don't need to leave those plates on there. Like if you could bench that, or if you can move that weight, then you can lift it off and put it back.
Wait. You're telling me somebody left a 45-pound plate on each side of a bench and walked over?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You're an asshole. Bottom line.
That's not the weirdest. That wasn't the weirdest thing I saw tonight at the gym, Nick. There was, those curl bars that have the set weights on each side. They're 20, 40, 60. Yeah. Someone left that standing vertically. And then on top of that were two 10-pound plates. And I thought someone was using it. It was left in the middle of the gym all night long. Then when I went over to use the curl bar, someone left two 60-pound dumbbells just on the floor. I'm like, okay, someone's using this while they're also using the, I guess the crunch machine. Nope, they're just standing there 100 feet from where they're supposed to be. Like people just left weights scattered. If you move your weights from one place to another, put them back. I always think of it as that's burning a couple extra calories, folks. That's another part of the workout.
Did your mother not teach you how to clean up after yourself?
Did your mother not love you enough as a child?
I have a song for you. It's a children's song. Maybe it'll help you tidy up after yourself and be considerate of your fellow gym goers. Clean up, everybody everywhere.
Do your share. Oh, sorry, no.
Oh my God. No, it's everybody everywhere. Then everybody do your share. Yeah. Let's add a verse there. Man. If you're in the gym using 60-pound dumbbells, pick them up, asshole. If you're strong enough to pick them up, you can put them back in their freaking place.
It really was. It was a problem tonight. Like normally I really don't care, but like I saw it a lot tonight. It's like, really? Like,
yeah, that's a long running thing. I always try. And here's the thing: is like I'm friends with the staff at my gym. They're all very nice people, and they have to re-rack stuff at the end of the night. Why would I leave that up to them? Like, do it yourself, dude. Be an adult. Do your job. My God. What's my love, Sean? Yeah.
What's your love?
What's you gonna ask me next? The Cleveland Cavaliers are 2-0 in
the
baby playoffs. I went to the game on Saturday. Big win. Nervous time a few times because they like to let teams back into games, and the way they performed against the Knicks last year, I didn't know what we were going to get. They had a rough end of the regular season. Donovan Mitchell is a killer. He is a killer, and he dropped 30 in that game. I think he dropped like 23 in game 2. They won the first game by 14. They won the second game by 10. It was more of a dominant performance than that. They're going to Orlando, and I hope they sweep them. I'm not going to say they're going to sweep them, not guaranteeing it, because they don't have LeBron, so I can't guarantee anything with the Cavs as they're currently constructed, and they're going on the road. But Orlando is essentially the Cavs from last year, which was overwhelmed by the moment, bullied by a team that had been there, had experience in the Knicks. This time the roles are reversed. The Cavs are now bullying Orlando. As much as they try to play bully ball, they're getting bullied by the Cavaliers. Jared Allen is on an absolute tear. He's been for most of the season. It's great to see him not wilting under pressure like he did last year. And again, I love Donovan Mitchell, and he's just playing awesome. Darius Garland's even figuring it out. I'm really hoping that they finish it off in Orlando and we move on to round 2, and I go to another playoff game.
You know what? I'm looking at tickets right now. I can go to that game for $50.
They were 45 here to get in the upper deck on Saturday.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Worth it. Yeah. And dude, playoff basketball is like playoff hockey, kind of.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about Orlando. I don't know what Magic fans are. Don't
start that, man. I got some Magic fans, and I have been singing your praises. I have been rooting for the Cavs.
Back in 2009, the Eastern Conference Finals, when they beat the Cavs, and or it was 2008. No, it was 2009. Dwight Howard, Hedo Turkoglu, Mikhail Petrus, Jameer Nelson, and the steroid user himself, Rashard Lewis, beat the Cavaliers in an upset. The fans were very raucous at that time, but it is a very different era for Magic basketball. They're kind of surprised, I think, to be here because it's a young team, and it's very much
like a year or two ahead of schedule. Yeah.
Paolo Banchero is in hell right now, by the way. Evan Mobley has him in complete hell. He has been a relative non-factor, and I love to see that.
My love, Nick, kind of similar. I love the Stanley Cup playoffs, man. This is the one time of year where I will watch hockey from noon until 1 a.m. And I still think, I will say this every year, it is the greatest tournament in all of sports. Get out of here with your Champions League. Get out of here with your World Cup. Get out of here with March Madness. Stanley Cup playoffs are the best show on earth. And currently, vibe check with Katie right now. Vibes are bad in Western Canada. Nashville leading Vancouver 3-1 in the third period. 26 combined shots on goal between these two teams. take everything I just said with a grain of salt because this game apparently is not living up to the hype. But at the same time, like, I just love that the bounce of a puck, it just hits a weird patch of ice. It hits someone's skate, boom, it's in. It's just it's so entertaining. So I love the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yo, live hockey is electric even in the regular season. I can't even imagine what it's like in playoffs. I understand hockey to a degree. I couldn't speak strategically on hockey. I appreciate hockey, but the one conclusion I've come to, and maybe this is just because most of the hockey games I've attended in the last few years have been either collegiate or minor league hockey, AHL games. The sport, like 70% of it is people just fighting for a loose puck. Like, it's chaotic. Like, there's no control. Now, there's a beauty when a very skilled player gets the puck on a stick and a breakaway and then, dekes the goalie and drops one in, a little backhand or a wrister or whatever else. But like, I never realized until recently how sloppy / chaotic the sport of hockey is.
It can be very chaotic, but I'll say that specific experience is a result of watching college and AHL hockey. There's a reason, like, yes, there are loose pucks, obviously, but what NHL players can do. So I'll give you a specific example. Back in Fort Myers when I was working there, I covered the local ECHL team, which is AA hockey, the Florida Everblades, and they had a problem. This was still when COVID. If you got COVID, you had to take a week off, and they had a couple of guys down with COVID, a couple of guys down with injury, and they called up a former Stanley Cup winner in Trevor Daley. Had been retired for a couple of years, but he owned a house on Fort Myers Beach, and he was friends with the owner of the team. And they said, "Hey, Trevor, can you come play for us just a couple of games?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So this old guy comes out of retirement to suit up for a AA hockey team. I'm there covering the game, Nick. And when by the way, he won 2 cups with the Penguins, so that was like amazing. When I'm watching him skate, he gets the puck. He is double the age of some of the guys on the ice, and I just watched him glide through everyone on the ice. Again, he is like double the age of the kids on the ice, and I said, that's the difference between the ECHL and the NHL. It is a completely different world. So watch the Stanley Cup playoffs and then tell me how much of the loose puck is up for grabs.
Yeah, and I have an experience from going to some Kings games when I lived in LA. And I will say back then, and that was like my first live hockey experience, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I was going to games recently. I was like, was it always like this? I don't think it was always like this. So that checks out. That definitely checks out.
All right. We have been way over on time tonight. We spent too much time talking
and I kept the lower third on there for way too long. Jesus.
I know. Nick, any last thoughts? Episode 31, Gridiron Podcast.
I need to be better with my graphics like this. That's it. Otherwise, I think we did it, Sean. I missed Katie.
We did it.
I truly missed Katie, and I hope she returns soon.
Katie, we miss you. We wish the best for your Canucks, really any Canadian team not named the Toronto Maple Leafs. This has been episode 31 of the Gridiron Podcast, the only podcast in the world covering exclusively Formula One and football. Again, we don't discriminate on the football. We don't care if it's the XFL, NFL, or in this case, UTSA. Go Roadrunners, giving you a lot of plugs tonight. For Nick Shook, I'm Sean Barie, and for the absent Katie Caldwell, as always, live life in the fast lane.
And don't destroy Vancouver, Canucks fans. Good night, Canada.
Good night, Canada.